what's up with all the sorry teams being good, right? The Thunder are like at 500. The Spurs are leading their division. The Utah Jazz, Danny Ainge got to be like throwing stuff through windows up there with all them games they was winning. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. It is that time of week where we have a guest join us. NBA columnist from Yahoo Sports. Check out the things he's been putting out this week. He got a lot of heat for you. Vince Goodwill, what's going on?
What's going on, Bo? It's been a fun week, hasn't it?
Oh, man, it's been a week, man. We got a lot to talk about. We got actual NBA basketball to talk about. Like, we don't want to skip over that. There's actually things that are happening on the floor. But, dude, at this point, we can't even make this about your man, Kyrie, because Kyrie is but a part of the story of the chaotic Brooklyn Nets. Because, okay. Now, I'm going to ask you if you've heard this same thing. I heard that the Nets had planned to fire Steve Nash over the weekend, except the whole Kyrie thing happened after that game that they lost on Saturday, right? And so they're like, okay, I guess we can't fire him now. And so then they wait to fire him on Tuesday after a win on a back-to-back on a Tuesday where your game is on Inside the NBA. I feel like that's a haphazard plan. When all they had to do was wait for them to lose that game because you knew they was going to lose that game, and then fire them today because you're 2-6.
I wonder, Bo, because you got 3 road games coming up, right? They got 3 road games. One of 2 things could happen. Maybe the Ime Udoka flirtation, which happened awfully quickly, that you got permission from the Boston Celtics, you negotiated with Ime, and you got a deal done all in the span of 90 minutes. You know what I mean? that takes some real work from your crack staff to get all of that done.
Well, hold on. One thing to be fair, getting the approval probably took 15 seconds. Like Boston already let it be known. Y'all can have him. We just can't bring him back. It's cool. No beef. We might even give him a letter of recommendation. But he can't come back.
Sean Marks calls up Brad Stevens. Hey, Brad, I need to ask a favor. Yes. Sam, yes. I know what you're asking. Go ahead.
Like, you don't even have to say a word. Like, Brad Stevens picked up the phone. Hey, Sean, deal. Then the next part of that is negotiating the deal. I imagine that didn't take long either. We'll just give you the deal that Boston is giving you. Okay, cool. Not like Ime is operation from a position of strength. Okay, cool. Like I imagine that part. I could see all those things going fast, even though I think we both know none of those things happened just now. It could have, but it did not. But a team mired in chaos and controversy decides to bring Ime Udoka in to be the head coach. Now, this is my thought on that part, Vinny, and you tell me what you think about this. Something that I think has been forgotten here is that Ime hasn't had to answer one single question about why he got suspended by the Celtics. He has not had to do any public availability yet. And that's coming now as everybody in the media has a different kind of leverage. Like, dealing with press conference situations is a leverage situation. There are ways that you can come at people, and it's not really dictated by who the person is as much as it's dictated by the circumstance and the situation. And in this situation, everybody gets to go. It's go time in this situation. I don't know what they plan on telling us or not telling us in whatever this press conference is going to be, but they better cook up a better plan than their Kyrie plan, which is, hey, man, just stay over there.
Well, it's funny because not to shamelessly shill for a column I just wrote for Yahoo Sports, but yeah, he has to answer these questions. And here's the thing, Bo: if you're Kyrie Irving, there's no better cover than Ime Udoka. If you're Ime Udoka, there's no better cover than Kyrie Irving. They will both be taking turns pushing each other out there in front of the bus for somebody to get run over on. And you're right. I'd heard yesterday afternoon, hey man, this would have been done Sunday morning if not for that disastrous Kyrie Irving press conference on Saturday night. So Kyrie can save Steve Nash for a day. That's about the most cover, the most support that Steve Nash has gotten from that entire organization for the last 2.5 years was Kyrie Irving and his nonsense. But yeah, you're right. Here's the thing. What answers will Ime Udoka give? Like, because if you're the Nets, you can't even provide cover for him in the press conference from a position of I'm his superior. I was there. These are the reasons why we as an organization made the decision that we made to bring him back. No, he got to answer for something over there. Right. Ain't like he gonna be sitting with Wick and Brad Stevens. He gonna have to answer every nasty ass question and innuendo or rumor. And then he's gonna have to answer it in New York with Boston as a backdrop. That's going to be nasty. And I don't mean that. You know what, Bo? I had a mishap yesterday on television where I said Ime Udoka sprinkled his magic juice, and they was like, "Hey man, you got to correct that."
Good point. Now I will say this though: Ime can only provide cover for Kyrie for one day. Like the sort of questions that Ime's got to answer, you only got to deal with it that one day. Like you deal with it that one day, and then you can go about it. Kyrie is like kind of a permanent situation that's going to hang over this. But my question about hiring Ime to be the coach of the Nets is this is a different job than the job he had last time. Like, some people got upset with me on Twitter because I said that the Celtics were underachievers who needed to go to the next level. And people were like, they're not underachievers. They went to the conference finals. They were injury riddled by the end of 2021. Brad Stevens did not leave that job because he thought he was the man to get them there. Like the belief was that collection of people had gotten as far as they could go, and that they could be better than they were. Like, I didn't mean underachiever as though there were a bunch of bums that had never done anything. I meant in the sense that this was a team with very good players that needed to take that next step. And part of how they needed to get to that next step was really about an accountability that Brad Stevens didn't seem to be able to instill in them, but somebody with a different personality could possibly bring out. And Ime was that guy. This team has a bad roster. Like, I don't know. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, they got two guys that scored 30 points a game. You're saying the roster's bad? They got two guys scored 30 points a game, and they were 2-5 when I said it. So how can the rest of the roster be good, right? Like, one thing about basketball, generally, if you got two dudes that good, you ain't going no 2-5 to start the year. You ain't going no 2-6 to start the year. Not if your roster is worth any kind of damn. And I just don't think their roster is any good. They're like, well, wait till Joe Harris gets back. Joe Harris is 30-something years old coming off an ankle reconstruction. What version of Joe Harris is it that you think you're going to get? Because the version I saw looked like his ankle hurt.
Well, you got KD and 6'3". Which 6'3", Bomani? Pick one. Joe Harris, 6'3"-ish. Seth Curry, 6'3"-ish. Kyrie Irving, 6'2"-ish. Patty Mills, 6'3"-ish. You got a bunch of dudes around the same height that kind of do the same thing. You got Kevin Durant. If you watched the game last night, for those who suffered through it, you had Kevin Durant guarding Nikola Vucevic, like late in the game, a guy who's had an Achilles and an MCL and is supposed to be your best player, and you have him bumping and banging on a 7-footer, 35 for 38 minutes into a game when he's supposed to be your premier fourth quarter option. Bo, how does that make any basketball sense? Like,
because all they got is tall man. When you think about this, is Nick Claxton much sturdier than Kevin Durant?
He is sturdier, but he ain't. But there's not a discernible difference,
right? Well, like Kevin Durant isn't nearly as like wispy as people believe. Right. that he
Right.
is, right? When he first got in the league, we were talking about something. Kevin Durant's probably got to be a legit 235, 240. Like he's
Right.
not,
Yeah.
he's not a small man in the way that you might perceive him to be from watching on television, but he's not a dude to be banging into posts against Vucevic, who is a giant. A
That's what I'm
legit,
saying.
but who else? Let's say, like, who else are you looking at on that roster that's going to be able to do that? It is a bad roster. And so, Ime, you can go in there and tell them young dudes that it's time to stop acting like children and then make something happen. I don't think that approach is going to work with Kyrie Irving. I just don't see it. And I don't think that this is a situation where, like, maxing out the lesser players is going to get this team to where it needs to be. Like I was telling somebody yesterday, it might get better, but it ain't going to get good enough.
Look, Ime Udoka, and I'm going to see if you rock with me on this, and I literally just thought of this. Ime Udoka would have been a better coach for last year's pre-trade Brooklyn Nets when you got James Harden and you got Kyrie. Like, not to say that he would have been able to get Kyrie to take the jab, right? But let's just say you have an offensive juggernaut and you need someone to be able to put it together and have guys do the little things just to get you over the hump defensively with the roster that they had, because you're killing everybody on offense. This team ain't overwhelming nobody on offense.
No.
You're scoring a lot of points, but you're not overwhelming anybody. And as you saw last night, if Kyrie was, let's say, Bomani, let me ask you this before we even change. Was that a weird game for Kyrie or a purposeful game for Kyrie last night?
I think it was weird. I don't think it was purposeful. And the reason I don't think it was purposeful is that he still had like 6 rebounds and 7 assists. Like that, and I don't know what he got to be mad at the Nets for, right? Like I don't know, like showing out against them, they are doing better by him than I would under these circumstances. I just think he couldn't get a bucket. He was still trying to give buckets in the fourth quarter. I just think that it was a weird game, but I also do think it is interesting that once he could finally get a couple shots to fall, coincidentally, the ceiling fell in on them in that game. Like that game against the Bulls, I did not think they were going to win when they were up. I sent you a text, I think around the early fourth quarter or somewhere in there. I was like, yeah, the Nets going to lose this game. They've been up the whole way. They had pulled, gotten themselves a big lead. And I was like, oh, no, they're going to lose this game. And the reason they were going to lose this game, it looked like a game where the team that wasn't as good was ahead.
I think it was late third quarter before stuff started getting even remotely close. Like Kevin Durant has to do so much work, not necessarily to get a bucket, but just he has to do so much work on offense to go through the progressions and then to get a shot. Life should be easy for him. This is a guy, Bo, who scores as easily as any player who has ever scored in the game of basketball. Easier than Kobe Bryant, easier than LeBron, quietly maybe easier than Michael Jordan.
No, yes.
And he's having to work so damn hard to get a bucket. And then you say, Kevin Durant, can you guard this big guy in the fourth quarter? In addition to not having a facilitator to help create shots. KD as secondary facilitator, really good. KD as connector to everything and everybody, that ain't really his bag, and it shouldn't have to be. And we know that that ain't Kyrie Irving's bag. He got 6 assists, but how many of them came in the flow of the offense? Like, that's why assists is one of them misleading stats. Yeah. Like Stephon Marbury, 20 and 9 every year, and you're trying to wonder why his team was bad every year. Because them stats don't mean the same thing for everybody. You know what I mean? And now you bringing in Ime Udoka and you're telling him to fix it. But this ain't an underachieving roster. And you're not saying Kevin Durant be better or Kyrie Irving be better. You could ask Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to reach a level of basketball play that they hadn't yet reached, that they had shown potential to be. This is not anywhere close to the best version of Kevin Durant. This is not, I don't know what the best version of Kyrie Irving was, but he probably needed to be around LeBron James to be the best version of himself, because all you were going to need for him to do is get buckets. Now you need Kyrie Irving to facilitate and lead. Where are we going if he leading?
Yeah. Also, don't forget this about Ime. It got worse before it got better.
And remember, he called them dudes out publicly. He called them out for not playing defense. He called them out for not passing. He called them out for all of that, and it turned around the first of the year. How do you think Kyrie Irving is going to take to being called out? The man got 9 coaches in his career for a reason. Now, all of them ain't his fault, but he got 9 coaches in his basketball career. That's a lot to have in 12 years, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so much. It's so much. And I mean, I don't know how much there is left to
We're
say.
not even talking about the Lakers no more, bro.
No,
the
we're
Lakers
not.
don't even matter.
Well, also because they got that win against the Nuggets. Oh, okay, they got a win. That's not nearly as interesting as when they lose. Sad but true. But I want to talk about this with you and Kyrie because you and I both have been publicly critical of him. You wrote a column about him that I recommend people check out. I said the thing on Twitter about him getting waived, and then I did some TV yesterday about it. And the response to me being critical of him has been very, very interesting. First of all, on Twitter, just a lot of haranguing from trash accounts, right? Even if the accounts are run by real people, they're trash accounts, and they came immediately. And what was interesting about that was, for me, I've actually been kind of delicate about him. Like, I've talked about it in a very functional sense. Like, this is what the circumstances are. This is how people have responded to this. This is how Kyrie has responded. These are all the circumstances about it. This is what the move should be, right? Like, that's where I've gone on it. And I think that that is really actually all like kind of based on a factual sort of situation. But I also admit I've been doing this job for a long time, and I know the okie doke that can come up in a time and in a situation like this. And the reason I know the okie doke that can come up is far too many people demanding that I and other Black people denounce this act of anti-Semitism, and like this larger discussion about there being like pockets of the Black community. You know how I feel about that term, but that possess anti-Semitic views, which is absolutely true. But I don't really typically see it be a case where when a white anti-Semite does something, that any white person that comes on to talk about it is asked to denounce that person, And so I started getting a lot of phone calls yesterday to do appearances on a range of networks. Now, it just so happened that I was literally not available to do any of the ones, but I did peep some game, and I'm like, oh, have I been identified as the Black person to come on television and be critical of this other Black person? Has this thing happened? And I'm like, you tricky rascals. There we go. That's such a weird feeling that comes up on this, man, because Kyrie is so obviously ridiculous, and what he's saying is so obviously wrong, and it's so obviously problematic, the direction that he is going in, right? And I also understand and know that for a lot of Black people, it gets weird when you're saying something that's true, but all these white people around you are just a little bit too excited about the thing it is that you're saying about that person, right? Because what I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know what a handle you have on this, I got all those tweets from ridiculous accounts in defense of Kyrie. I haven't really found too many reasonable people who are defending Kyrie. Like, he's a flashpoint guy now that the algorithms have told people, like Kanye, another unserious person who commands a lot of attention. And so it then gets weird on how exactly do we talk about this dude? Because it can go so many ways.
Bo, every bit of criticism that I've received on Twitter, it's the buzzwords, and then before I block them, I will go to their profile and see when the profile started, how many real tweets they have up, and how many are just replies to flashpoint topics. Very few of them, right? very few of them are actually real people. It is a weird thing though, because as Black folks, there's a certain level of protecting your own that you know what I'm saying, that you feel. And, growing up, there's this all this saying, hey man, whatever problems we got, keep it in the house. We don't talk about that stuff outside the house, blah, 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 whatever. You know what I mean? All that stuff. It's weird. But there's no other way to put it, but besides, it's weird because like you, if people would go back, I've been really kind to Kyrie through some really not kind instances. You know what I mean? Like when Kyrie was talking about the mental health stuff in the very beginning, when Kyrie was dealing with the loss of Kobe Bryant in the immediate aftermath of all that. Yeah, I've banged on him a little bit, but it was less about him not taking the vaccine last year. It was about the stuff that he was saying around it that was dangerous. And he was saying, I'm a voice for the voiceless. Kyrie, you know why they're voiceless? Because they're dead. That's why they're voiceless. You know, like I wanted him to grasp and to understand, if you have that power, actually understand how valuable this power is, and it can go in a bunch of different ways. And I think that's what people who are untrained or who are just naturally protective of anything that anybody Black says, especially someone like Kyrie, who people have decided we're going to wrap our arms around and say he means well, so let's protect him and not hold him accountable. You know what I mean? Like there's a level of something there, and it's hard to, I guess, split the baby. But I know that I can be harsh as a writer sometimes. That's why, honestly, I sit and wait. Yeah. I wait a day, an extra day, just to get my feelings under control. So for those who think that I'm hard on Kyrie, believe you me, I and many of us could be a whole lot worse.
Yeah, and see, I don't have the same like protectionist impulse, right? The we keep this in-house sort of thing. I'm not inclined toward that one. But what I won't do is get used. Right. And I mean, I've watched this happen many times over the course of time, right? And it can be especially tricky in a situation where something has happened where a Black person has done something that offends white liberals, right? Because then that's when people need to call you in to say the stuff, is under those circumstances, because that's when they get a little worried about saying it themselves, because we're not exactly sure in what direction this thing is going to wind up.
How can we say this?
Yeah,
that's what it comes off.
Yeah, but see, and I think for me, in terms of the way that I view this, one, I didn't actually watch this damn movie. And so I'm careful about making judgments about what's in it because I have not watched it. Like that for me is, I mean, I've seen some excerpts and things that have come from it, but I'm careful about the fact that I have not seen it. I doubt that seeing it would change my mind, but still, right? Like I have not actually seen it. Number two, I don't think this dude has actually seen it either. Right? Like I don't believe that Kyrie Irving has seen that film. And so did he endorse it? Yes. There's no way around the fact that he endorsed it. Does he actually endorse the message from it? I have no idea, because I don't think he actually watched it. But the thing to me, where the rubber meets the road in terms of how he is dealt with in a functional sense, it doesn't matter to me if he is an anti-Semite. Like, I don't believe that being a racist, being a misogynist, being an anti-Semite, I don't think any of those things are disqualifying factors for employment. I just don't. Bad people get to have jobs. Right? And sometimes those jobs are cool ones that some of us would like to have or whatever it is. But if we were like, yo, we're going to clear out all the racists and anti-Semites, if you possess those views, you can't participate in sports. I'm not exactly sure who would be out here participating in sports, but it would not be the same people that are out here participating in sports right now. Like, for me, the reason that Kyrie really has to go is whether he believes this or not. There's a fair argument to make that what he did was dangerous, right? He is an influential person, is spreading ideas that have the potential to foment violence and other things, right? It doesn't really matter to me what he thinks. It doesn't really matter to me how he feels about any of these groups of people. You can't do that, and you can't grasp the idea that not only can you not do that, you have to pay account to the fact that you did that, right? If you don't get that, you got to go, right? That's it.
But it's funny because I had this conversation with someone the other day, just a friend of mine in the business. And I said, it doesn't matter if someone is racist or not. And like, and it was just a different topic in itself. And I said to her, I said, whether someone is racist or not is completely immaterial. Like, it's what you do with that race. Like, being racist is a feeling or a thought or whatever that is. However you feel about a certain about black people, certain group of people, whatever. Like, I'm not going to get inside your brain. For one, there's a whole lot of people I actually like and really get down with, and I don't want to know your innermost thoughts about race. That does me no good, but cause me extra stress. And to the point about anti-Semitism, like Jan Weitzman from Fox Sports, he tweeted something last night. He said, conspiracy theories about Jews lead to dead Jews. That is a historical fact. And it's something that Kyrie, the Nets, and frankly, most of the NBA don't seem to be taken very seriously. That first statement is a monster. Conspiracy theories about Jews lead to dead Jews. And the fact that people don't seem to sort of get that, like, I think Kyrie is digging down because there's so many people telling him that he should back down. I literally think that Kyrie is throw a Molotov cocktail, start a fire, watch the world burn, have a chuckle or whatever. But when it comes time to account for it and to actually say, okay, do you endorse 3.5 hours of this? He can't actually say whether he does or not, because I don't think he watched it, but he's not going to bow down in front of the media. He's not going to bow down in front of the world. And that's a bigger problem to me than endorsing it himself. Is there's no point of actual accountability and or reflection, which is why we haven't seen Kyrie Irving talk to the media since Saturday, and we not going to see him talk for the next few days, Bo.
Yeah. Well, he's also in another interesting situation as we are seeing this rising tide of anti-Semitism, not just in this country, but I think we could say safely in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the public anti-Semites are preaching to the choir, right? They're on their cable television shows talking to the people who want to hear what they have to say. In fact, whoever it was that wrote the book and did that movie that Kyrie Irving linked to, Kyrie's thing was, I send this out to my community and for the people who are interested in it. And if it offends you, obviously it wasn't for you, right? That's a story that the author or director or whatever of that film could actually plausibly give, right? Because that is who is actually consuming that content, is people who want it by and large. Like, of course, there's like YouTube algorithm type stuff and people wind up in a rabbit hole, but that content is being made for people primarily who are seeking out that content. Even if you're getting caught on in the algorithm, it's because the algorithm is seeking out that content for you.
Right.
Kyrie is the rare public anti-Semite in this day and age who is in a position to spread his message, not to the choir, right? To people who really didn't come here for that. They came here because you are a basketball player. And he's like, hey, while you're here, you want to talk about the Holocaust? Whoa, no, buddy. No, we don't. What is this, right? It is not very often that I think, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong here, but it is not very often that the people who are on the business end of this anti-Semitism are in a position to so directly challenge the anti-Semite and have the potential for having an effect, right? So like the people who politically traffic in anti-Semitism, right? Who make their political money off of that. The angrier that people get about the fact that they do that, the more emboldened those people ultimately become. And in a lot of ways, become more popular with the base that is necessary for them to be successful, right? It becomes a real catch-22 because you stand up in righteous anger as you should, and it still feels like they win when they do that, right? You can't do nothing about those people, but it does feel like with Kyrie and with the league, you can actually pressure a league. These political organizations that traffic in that, you can't pressure them, but you can pressure Kyrie Irving. And it becomes kind of necessary to pressure Kyrie Irving because, again, he has a chance to reach the unconverted on this matter. He does. But I do think that there are some people who view this, and I can understand this argument, and say that these people who are actually preaching to their choirs are far more dangerous than Kyrie Irving is, right? They believe that he is way more, that those people are more dangerous. But in terms of a danger that you can actually confront, Kyrie is one that you can actually confront.
We've seen this playbook before, right?
Yeah.
We've seen this playbook during a very critical point in our individual lives and our collective lives, where if you thought that this only occurred or these beliefs were only sort of prevalent in very small pockets, in pockets that you couldn't see, in pockets that you didn't know about, issues like this bring it to the forefront. Issues like this, like Kyrie is the instrument. Oh, because Kyrie believes this, it's okay for me to believe this publicly. Bomani, where have we seen this before?
Right.
You know what I mean? And when you go, and there was someone in my mentions who brought up, well, why is it on Amazon? Why aren't you guys giving Amazon smoke? One, I don't cover Amazon as a primary business, but two, when I went and looked at like the ratings for it, and I don't know how accurate those things are, it was overwhelmingly positive, which meant the people who saw it were the people who it was intended for and it was marketed to, and they knew it existed because it was something that they wanted. The people who don't know about this, we ain't going over there to watch that and to give it a thumbs down or to give it a 0 stars or whatever group or sect that you belong to. You know what I mean? You don't know that exists until someone like Kyrie Irving presents it to the masses and presents it to people who don't know that I didn't know this thing actually existed.
Yo, I mean, this is my one thing I had with Amazon. The only conclusion I could draw from this is if I just send y'all a movie, y'all put it up there. Like, is there some evaluation
what's the process? Yeah. What's the process?
Yeah, like did this have to get through anybody? Who's their distributor? Like, can I just really just hit up Amazon and be like, hey, I got a movie. All right, cool. We put it up there. Like, I did not know it was this easy. And look, I do have questions. Like, I mean, that's joking, but I do have questions about how much curation Amazon is doing. It's like, for example, Amazon finally reached a point, I think, where they stopped selling Confederate flags. So they won't just sell anything just because it makes money. They'll sell a lot. Like, just look stuff up on Amazon. You might be surprised.
Anything.
It's there. But no, I don't think that's an unfair question to ask. It's just not nearly close to being the same question. Like, I'll put it to you like this. If Amazon had a video up that was like explicitly promoting like some neo-Nazi stuff, we would be loudly asking, hey, Amazon, what is this stuff that you putting up there? I think part of what happened with this in this video in the space that Kyrie is trafficking in is honestly, it's stuff that Black people have been hearing and white people in the Northeast, right? Because it's a little different in the Northeast with some of this stuff. People have been hearing them folks and laughing them off for so long that I think it's hard for some people to jump out of Native people into funny clothes outside the train station and get to what the effects are that this might have. Because you got your cousin that gets on that and everybody just dismisses it. And you view them as being harmless because they ain't doing nothing, right? Like, they're not organizing in like roving bands of violence and going to the next level on it. They just the dudes on the corner that you wind up being like, oh, they off on that other, right? Like, I think that people view that's how they view what they see in that. I think for a lot of white people who don't know these folks exist, they're like, oh my God. And for better or worse, now unfortunately we're a little desensitized to these guys. we've seen
cousins or uncles or somebody. And the crazy thing is something that they might say. It's like, if you ever have a cousin or uncle, and I'm not saying I do, but let's just say you have a cousin or uncle that believes in this sort of thing. What is wrapped around is a small, like little bitty piece of fact. And everything around it is nonsense. But they started from some base of fact and they go to places that a rational person just wouldn't go. It's just enough truth to get someone to believe that everything else around it is true, and they don't have like the discernment to do it.
Yeah.
They don't have the and put it like this. This is also another thing. And this is not to make fun of Kyrie per se, but you'll rock with me here, Bo. Kyrie strikes me as the friend who went to college and had some bad weed and was never the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't, yeah, nah, man, he cool, man. He tripping. I think he had some bad weed when he was up there at Michigan
Nah,
State, though. You know
yeah,
what I mean? That sort of thing.
what happened was he ran up into Shaza Zulu. Like he got his version of Shaza Zulu. Every college, and this ain't just the black college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every college got that one dude who normally, by the way, did go to school there at one point. But whether he left with a degree or not, he departed the actual roles many, many years ago, but still hangs out around the colleges because that's where the 19-year-old girls are. Anyway, there's always
And it used to be RAs.
yeah.
It used to be the
Now,
RAs.
now, well, see, the one I'm thinking about, he don't get to be an RA because he way too far off. He way too far off to begin with. But some shaman type of dude who's always out here like talking this noise, and there's somebody that always pulls out the pamphlets and everything else. And they get you. They get that one person who's looking for something to believe in, looking for something to cling on to, and then they go down that road. And Kyrie is that person, except he's that person, but he's 30 years old, so he's got like a different confidence and a different resolve around all of these things that he's saying, but he's not alone. Like we start talking about, I got an army. I'm like, yo, bro, don't talk like that. What are you talking about? What do you mean? Right? Like he, because he is Kyrie Irving, can do damage. And that's why this is important. But the disturbing part is he's so unserious that it's really disheartening to consider the idea that he might have this range of influence on people, and him in a place where he believes, right? And this is something I do think, you gotta, when you talk about him, you do have to traffic in his own delusional space somewhat, right? And he believes that he is right. He believes that he is correct. And more than anything, he believes that he has the right to say what he wants. And he jumps in and out of, I have a platform and I speak for I'm the voice for the voiceless. And hey, I'm just a guy. It's not that big a deal. And I tell you, I have learned over the course of time, one of the biggest things I had to get a hold of as I became a public figure was realizing I no longer got to just be a guy. I think that for me was about little stuff like talking about musicians and musical artists. Like I couldn't just be a guy anymore. If I said I didn't like something or I didn't like someone, that is now termed as disrespect. I might get a phone call, all of this stuff, right? People really take it part. You ain't just some dude just sending stuff out to you. You can't be that at your level of visibility and influence. It's just not an option anymore, right? So even if you, no matter what you think about Kyrie, and if you on his team or whatever it is, that kind of logic can't slide no more, right? If you can't answer for this, you can't do it. Those are the rules.
I think this makes a lot more sense, Bo, if you go back to the Eric Garner situation for Kyrie.
Yeah.
Remember the I Can't Breathe shirts? If I remember correctly, it was Kyrie's idea to wear the t-shirts.
Yes.
But LeBron got the credit.
You're right.
I'm betting that Kyrie feels like, oh, so it's not the message that gets everybody going, it's the messenger. So how do I make myself a credible, valid messenger so I can have the same influence as a LeBron? And I think that resentment or that base or whatever, that first impression that he had in dipping his toe into this activism truth space has, I won't say poisoned his mind, but I will say it has crafted his narrative on what he thinks this is. That disappointment, him watching how that media cycle was created and saying, hey, I did this. Why can't I get the credit for this? I'm from, that area. I know of that situation. LeBron just did it himself and then got credit for it. Why won't y'all give me credit for it? And he's been on this endless search for truth. And subsequently, through a subtext of that, credit and validation, and y'all gonna listen to me. That's the whole flat earther thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether he believed it or not, he was looking to see how valid and how serious that he's going to be taken. But like you said, he's not a serious dude.
No. And we give so much attention to unserious people, but in a case like his, we kind of have to, right? Like the person on Twitter that you only know because they say ridiculous things on Twitter, you can just act like you don't see that person, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just became more difficult with a Kanye West or a Kyrie Irving, right? Like once they go into this, because they have a social capital and a relevance that makes it impossible for me to just be like, man, well, why don't you just not listen to him, right? Because that's my impulse and my inclination with Kyrie. Like, oh, that's what he on? Oh, all right, keep moving. We don't really have that option, unfortunately.
And black people, Bo, going back to your first point, we don't have the option of being able to dismiss Kyrie or Kanye. We got to answer for everything. If we tell y'all to ignore them and they say something crazy, then it's like we're being perceived as ignoring the issue of what they're saying. It's going back to the protectionism, and we got to answer for all of it. Why I got to answer for this fool?
Yeah, because we have to answer for it, because every time we talk about our struggle and plight, we have to justify the fact that we should be treated as humans. And anything that gives people the belief that we are not treating others as we wish to be treated is implicitly then not even a defense for how we are treated, but an excuse to ignore the way that we are treated because you don't care about ... And that's where I get uncomfortable when I'm so sought after in these moments to come into these places where I'm like, nah, we're not doing the same thing right now. We're not making the same point right now. And even if I do believe this, what I say about Kyrie the whole way, being right matters, but so much, right? Like there's being right, and then there's the way that you being right is then ultimately going to be twisted and turned and used. And I was like, I think I will do my best to talk about this on my platforms, because you ain't gonna steer me in there with the question that goes into the should Kyrie be waived? I said, hey, should is a tricky word, because should depends on what you talk about. I'm like, that's what I would do under those circumstances, right? But I'm like, I know how this goes. This when the aggregators jump up. Bomani says ... Nah. You gonna get it all. Like I got to give it to you in a way that you can get it all. By the way, man, I promised that I would talk some NBA basketball since we're here. We only got like 7, 8, 10 minutes, something like this, for the actual discussion of NBA basketball. But I do want to bring something up about NBA basketball. What's up with all the sorry teams being good, right? The Thunder are like at 500. The Spurs are leading their division. The Utah Jazz, Danny Ainge got to be like throwing stuff through windows up there with all them games they was winning.
Or he's very happy that a young man named Laurie Markkinen has turned out to be everything and more. There's a million different ways you can look at that Utah situation with our buddy Danny Ainge.
Yes.
Look, you look at the standings, you see Brooklyn at the bottom. That's, I won't say expected, but
I mean, who told you? Who told you this is how it was gonna go, though? Who told y'all that this is how it was gonna go? We looked at that schedule months ago. Me and you on the phone. I was like, dude, they might start 1-5. And they're
gonna struggle. And then they were like, how long is it before they fire Steve Nash? I don't know if we set the over-under on November 1.
But that's only because we didn't know that they would have played 7 games by then. Keep in mind, by the way, 6 of their first 8 games were at home, and they are now 2-6.
Here's a dirty little secret. They give the good schedules to the good teams because the league wants you to be able to easily identify who should be good early. So if a team is struggling, like the Clippers, or to a lesser degree, like the champs, it's a warning sign that everything ain't quite right. Now, Golden State, I've seen in person a few times. I think they'll get it together. It looks like the same team, but it's not. You know what I mean? They got a lot of stuff that they got going on. It looks like the same team, but it's not. It's a lot of similar pieces, but guys are trying to get more roles and everything else. And then you had the Draymond Jordan Poole thing that really probably exhausted this team before they even started playing regular season basketball. I'm worried about the Clippers. If Kawhi Leonard has played 2 games out of 9, what are we saying it's going to bode for the future? Now, we've seen Paul George's leader guy. He can carry you some places, right? I don't know if he can carry you in this Western Conference.
Well, he's not playing especially well. And what's worrisome about Kawhi playing 2 out of 9 games is that ACL tear is like 16 months ago. This isn't a rush job. One thing I do wonder, though, and I'm not a kinesiologist or nothing like that, but he put on a lot of mass in his legs, and it doesn't feel like, even if the plan was to do that to strengthen the knee, it doesn't feel like putting that much mass on a repaired knee ligament is the best idea that anybody's ever had.
I think you can go back a little further. Kawhi put on weight like when he first got to Toronto. Yeah. Like when he was with San Antonio, he looked like a sports car. You know what I mean? He wasn't really top heavy. He was more slender and strong and cut. And now, not to say that he went from being a sports car to being an SUV, an efficient SUV, but an SUV. And if you put on more weight and you've already got lower leg issues to begin with, I don't know how this ends. I won't say ends well, but I don't know how his history says that this is going to go as well as expected.
Dude, so much of this season on so many teams is about the toll of injuries past. The Warriors, the toll of Klay Thompson's injuries past, big deal. The Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, the toll of injuries past.
The Lakers.
The Lakers, right. The toll of injuries past. Milwaukee with Chris Middleton. Like, where is he going to be off of those injuries? James Harden / Joel Embiid is just always hurt, but that's what it is. But like Philadelphia, we're looking at that. With the Nets, with Joe Harris and Seth Curry and TJ Warren, if you have the most optimistic view about what is possible for them, then we're still talking about the same thing. Like, we're in this time and era where we're looking up and realizing, oh, yeah, that's right. These dudes ain't young. Like, looking at Miami, Jimmy Butler is not young. That's not a toll of injury situation, but you know what I mean? A lot of that.
It kind of is, though. It kind of is. A lot Kyle of nagging injuries.
Not young. And, and had these things. And I think that's somewhere we're looking all around the league. I mean, in a different way, Zion Williamson.
Well,
this is a running discussion.
Here's the other thing. We look at this league as being a talent-rich league, right? Which it is, which is why you're talking about adding 2 teams and everything else, because you got a lot of talent, international influence and everything else. But a lot of the talent is old. A lot of the talent has been hanging around a lot longer than we've been able to reasonably expect.
Oh, add Chris Paul to that list, by the way, in line with that.
Do we have to?
No, I'm just saying.
No, you're right. You're right. Exactly. No, you're right. And think about it. Chris Paul, year 17 at 6 feet tall.
Year 18.
Okay. Year 18 for Chris Paul. Year 13 for Paul George, if I remember correctly. Yep. He came in the league in 2010.
Yep. Year 12 for Kawhi Leonard.
Year 10 for Anthony Davis.
Year 11 for Anthony Davis.
That's right. Yeah. On top of injuries, on top of we're waiting on him to become the best version of himself. We've already seen it, y'all. It's already been. I think is this year 8 for Giannis. Not that he's in the injury space, but
10.
No. He came in.
No, year 9. His 2013 draft. The next year was his rookie year.
Yep. So think about all the guys that you think. James Harden, year what? 14. 2009. You know what I mean? All the guys, you're seeing the atrophy while they're still being able to be reasonably productive versions of themselves. We used to say old teams win. Well, I'm starting to think young-ish teams win.
Yeah. Well, young-ish.
Not young.
It's mature teams with young-ish superstars win, right? Like that's where it goes. You're not gonna win with a bunch of 24-year-olds. See the 2012 Thunder, right? Like you're not going to do that. But there's a reason why they went and got Kendrick Perkins, right? But you need like youngish to young superstars to then push the rest of it to the next place. Like the Spurs, their run as it was done, and then you add Kawhi Leonard, and now those old guys have a younger guy to push them through, and you go and you get it. And that's where we are. I think, again, we forget how old some of these dudes are. Like, it's easy to lose sight of that. And so that's part of why this is a year where I have no clue who is going to win the championship.
I'm usually operate under the thought that there are 3 true contenders in a given year. Like, you pick a year and I will tell you who the contenders were, even if one of the contenders didn't even make the conference final. Mm-hmm. Just you pick a year, I think you can go with that. This year, it feels like double that, maybe. Can you see Phoenix, who I thought might have been team implosion with everything they had going through? They look really good. Golden State, I think, is going to get it together.
Milwaukee.
Who knows if Milwaukee, Boston, Memphis, with you're talking about a team that's got just enough experience, just enough heartbreak, and a superstar that's getting better. That's the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a team we haven't mentioned, a team that's not far from me, the Cleveland bleeping Cavaliers.
Apparently, I was wrong about Donovan Mitchell. Maybe he is that guy.
He looks good. They look better, and they haven't even unlocked Evan Mobley yet. Like, that's what I'm saying. Young-ish. And I've named, 6 contenders, Bo? And it could not wind up being any of them.
And we haven't even talked about Denver, where, I mean, obvious all the questions that you have about them, but dude, Aaron Gordon is their 4th best player. That's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, and you mentioned Phoenix. They went and got them a fan favorite that can ball. Who is he? Jock? Who's that guy?
You text me, and I was like, oh, the kid who looks like Sabonis, the Sabonis kid. That's when you strike, profile wise, because he's left-handed and everything. I was like, oh, look, the Sabonis looking guy. Because regardless of what people think, you can't keep up with everything all the time. So sometimes there's a new guy that pops up, and you're like, oh, who he play for? Oh, he played, not who he played for, but he played for them.
I never heard.
And he good.
He gonna make $5 million a year in local ads. He gonna make a fortune without ever doing a commercial outside of Phoenix. It's gonna be because he's good. Like, granted, I've only watched him play a couple of games, but you know what it looks like when somebody's playing over their heads. This wasn't it. This dude looks like he can ball.
He gonna be the new Dan Marley. Dan Marley got a restaurant downtown Phoenix across from the arena. That man is loved in a bunch of different ways and probably ain't played the game and went to different stops. It was still like Mr. Phoenix Sun. Yes. That might be my man.
All right, man. That is Vinny Goodwill. Tell the people about the podcast.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. So, for those who have been asking, I've been consulting with Mr. Jones and other people, and I am starting a podcast on Yahoo Sports. I think it's going to be called The Good Word with, Vince Goodwill. So it'll be starting in December. We're going to go once a week. I'm going to bring on guests like, Bomani Jones and other friends and stuff like that. We just go come and kick it, sort of same sort of vibe that you might expect to see when you see me here. So yeah, it'll be on Yahoo and all of those other streaming platforms that you get your podcast from.
All right, man. Well, you guys check that out. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this 3 times a week. Adi Khan and Parker Owens handling everything behind the scenes. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Remember, follow The Right Time. Rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. We'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.